All right.
Okay. Do
You want
we?
We're recording.
Okay.
Okay, pause, breathe, and
All right. We just wrapped up Fullscript Forward today and lots of takeaways from several of the tracks. It was kind of fun to bop around and between the sessions. My favorite talk today was probably Yale's and the genomic blueprint for women's health. That is definitely a growing interest of mine. So to hear her just go through all the enzymes and the genetic variations and how we actually approach genetics from a whole person care approach was super helpful and insightful.
yeah, I agree. I like that one a lot. I toggled during that one to the thyroid one. I always need a refresher with thyroid of all of the systems. Thyroid is the one that I consistently have to like, okay, double check this. So I appreciated that it felt like a little bit of a primer, something
Hmm.
to kind of refresh and had a lot of good points in there too. I really liked the call out for diet. I think I mentioned that earlier when we were talking, but that was one thing that stood out as a nutrition professional. Appreciate that. I also like something that something that Yale said in her talk, because I toggled back there, was that there's no bad or good variance, and it's all just information. So I do appreciate that. But then something that Dr. Downey mentioned in his burnout talk, it's an acronym I haven't heard, or is it an acronym? I don't know. When you
Oh,
have five letters, that's an acronym, yeah.
yeah, that's an acronym.
Okay, so the five P's, and I haven't heard this before, but he's talking about burnout, and a lot of those conversations are very similar to other conversations because there are similar approaches. But this was something new that I hadn't heard, and I appreciate this. So it's the five P's: peace, pillow, play, people, plants. And I was like, oh, I like that. Yeah. So that was a
Kind of
big.
like a quick little checklist that you can do, or at least just like a quick visualization of your toolbox of things.
Mhm.
And I feel like you can at least access at least one of those things in any one of at any point during your day. So I like that a lot.
Well, and I
Um,
have to tell you, the pillow one, I thought of something different too, because we always talk about sleep and
yeah.
we say sleep. And so then for somebody like myself who struggles to sleep, but I can still go to bed and rest, I always think like, am I doing good for myself? I know I am, but like
Hmm.
there's this idea, this ingrained thought that we have to be sleeping to get any benefit there. So when I say pillow, it makes me think, and it gives myself permission and maybe gives my patients permission to say like, even if you're not going to fall asleep, even if you're struggling to like with a little insomnia, even if like let that settle for a moment, just lay down and rest, like go to
Totally.
the pillow, like relax, like disconnect, decompress. So it was a reminder that rest is more than just sleep, I guess.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. Like sometimes just like I hate the term, but you know how they say just let your brain rot for like a little bit after a long day, which I don't think it should be rot. I guess it should be rest would be the more holistic term. But to literally just sit there and just let things exactly what you said, like settle and just allow yourself to process the day without stressing yourself out that you should actually be sleeping because I think just like taking a moment to be present with how your day went is equally restorative, at least for me, to recap. Because then everything kind of just feels like a habit and a task. So that's a really great reminder too, pillow versus sleep.
Mhm. Yeah, it's one less like thing we have to be good at. Like, what if we're not good at sleeping? Like,
Right,
we're resting, and you added some more P's in there, processing and being present, things like
right.
that.
Oh, now we have 7 P's.
We're gonna turn it into 25 P's and
Totally.
totally negate the point that we just made that you let your
Yeah,
brain decompress. We're just adding more cognitive load.
yeah,
Remember all these P's, but
yeah. The burnout test is actually also a cognitive test if you can remember what all the P's are in the moment.
yeah, just to contribute to more burnout.
Exactly. So you could get stressed about how you're not actually treating the burnout because you can't remember all the tools for combating burnout. Sounds very on brand for us.
Well, so now it makes me I have a question for you, Lexi. Now
Okay.
that we just had this cognitive load, we just participated. I mean, we did probably the things you shouldn't do, which is toggle between, but we'll get the recording so we can watch them later. But we worked our brain. We thought about it, we processed it, we really did a lot. Now we need to let our brains rest for a bit. So what are you going to do now before, in between meetings or whatever else you have going on? How are you going to let your brain rest? How do you do that after a heavy cognitive load like this?
Well, I feel like I feel like when we do this in-person conferences, when you and I like just talk about even through like during the talk and then after the talk to process what our takeaways, the processing of your own intake of the information and communicating that to somebody else and then getting feedback and then processing it again, that really cements a lot of the takeaways, especially since you and I have very different practice focuses. Like I always appreciate the different perspectives. And then I usually literally walk away from my computer. Like I feel like hours of lecture time definitely motivates me to get up and move and go
Mhm.
outside. And then handwritten notes, those are my favorite. Just because it feels like, I don't know, maybe that's just I know there's like neurologic benefits to actually writing things down.
Mhm.
That feels like that is a really concrete way to remember things. How I actually translate these handwritten notes into anything useful in
Yeah.
EHR is a different story, and maybe there's an AI workflow in there somewhere, but those are my three things. What about you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I like to step away. Like I usually have to. I find it almost like a physical pull. Like when I'm done with something, like it's like there's like a shut off where I'm like I can't even I don't know if I can process it in this moment. Like I have to walk away. And then my best if I'm really like optimizing this and everything in my life is aligned to allow me to optimize it, which doesn't always happen, the best thing that I can do is log in early the next day. Like I'm like an early morning, like 4 a.m. person. So like if I could get up at 4 a.m. and log on tomorrow morning and just sit in sort of the dark with like the
Hmm.
right frequency music in the background, look through my notes, kind of take like even look through the agenda again from the summit.
Yeah,
That gives me it starts to like things start to like I don't know. I'm doing this because I feel like they sort of like click into place. Like
totally.
they work that way. But to your point, like saying it, having these conversations with you, like this is a great way. So I recommend that if people have an opportunity to attend a virtual summit with a friend, take a few minutes after to just, I don't know, just unpack what was talked about.
Right. Or you can use, I've been using Granola too. You can like take voice memo notes if you don't have anyone or you prefer to not talk to anybody afterwards. You can always just talk to yourself and have notes that way. But there's so much information that they squeeze into these shorter talks that it is really important to figure out how you're then translating that into your workflows. Which kind of brings me to one of the other talks that I really like. So they talked about launching Fullscript Assist in July for full if you have a practitioner account, where it's essentially this AI plugin to your practitioner portal that looks for drug interactions and nutrient depletion. So mainly based on what information it's able to pull, either from what's been inserted if you just use the Fullscript platform independently, or how it is able to pull information from your EHR system. So that was pretty exciting because normally the workflow is to copy and paste each of those lists from your patient's chart and put them into either individually onto NatMed Pro database, I think is what it's called. Or you can use it in something like Functional Mind, or now you can use, I'm sure, something like ChatGPT. But
Mhm.
now it's just kind of housed into where you're making these recommendations on the Fullscript platform. So it allows you to take into consideration and evaluate interactions or depletions before you actually send them to the supplement list. So that seems like a huge upgrade in regards to how you marry this like more supplement-based care plan with their conventional care plan, which usually has a fair amount of polypharmacy going
Mhm.
on. So I'm really excited for that coming in July because that saves another window that I have tabbed open all the time.
Yeah,
Is
no,
toggle
great.
between two things. And then you end up getting distracted on NatMed database because they're like, oh, I have actually not read that study on berberine. Let me go check that out. And suddenly you're in a rabbit hole about berberine and antimicrobials for Crohn's disease when you're talking about a metabolic patient. So
We've
That
all done
might still happen, but
like, yeah, we sometimes I'm like, wait, why am I reading about muscle synthesis? And like, wait, we were
right.
about that. Yeah, no, I get it. And the one thing I liked about that talk too was they alluded to there's more coming too. Like there's a lot that is still, just evolving with identifying these gaps in practice, like you just said.
Mhm.
How can we eliminate another tab on our screen here. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And I just appreciate too that full script, like with these summits, it's not just about, you know, getting onto the platform and recommending labs or supplements. Like they are really providing resources for you to become competent in how you manage both of these fields of medicine to provide the best care for your patient and still keep them safe, which I think is very unique to other platforms
Mhm.
in regards to the education and the support that they provide for practitioners. And the fact that this was just free and accessible is amazing. Like there are some really big names today, like Aviva Ram and Helen Messier, and we missed the talk with Matthew Walker to talk about sleep, but to be able to hear from these experts and have, the templates and the implementation pieces readily accessible for you on the back end, um, really couldn't make it any easier to become competent in how you weave these into your workflows.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to like add to that, as somebody who comes from conventional care, that's where I started my practice and really strong conventional care background. I mean, I started in a pharmacy actually as a pharmacy tech. So I was talking about polypharmacy and then moving into public health and just moving into hospital systems, but always having this sort of functional mindset, the systems-based thinking, like Fullscript is like the answer to like, excuse me, the answer to all the problems that I ever had in communicating some of these important pieces. And so, yeah, I'm excited to use this and I've been using Fullscript, but to just learn more about different capabilities that are there for me within the platform.
Totally.
All right. Well,
All
this was
right.
fun. We both
We're
now
going to go take a break
have
from our
fun.
laptops.
Yeah, go look at the sun. Yes, go for
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Get some fresh air, move our bodies, and let everything just like slowly integrate
Mhm.
into our practice.
Yes. Thanks for joining us, if you will.
Bye.
Bye.